The cargo bay of Nexus Station buzzed with its usual mix of alien traders, smugglers, and drifters. Among the towering Chronari merchants and the sleek Vethian diplomats, a small white figure darted between the massive shipping containers. The creature was no bigger than a house cat, with pearl-white scales that seemed to shimmer under the artificial lights. Tiny wings fluttered nervously as it searched through the scattered debris and discarded food containers. Zara Chen watched the little dragon from her position behind the maintenance console. The 28-year-old human engineer had been working on Nexus Station for 3 years now, ever since her military discharge. Her cybernetic arm whirred softly as she adjusted the plasma conduits, but her attention kept drifting to the unusual visitor. The dragon was clearly hungry. Its ribs showed through its translucent skin, and it moved with the desperate urgency of something that hadn't eaten in days. Zara had seen plenty of exotic pets abandoned on the station when their owners couldn't afford the docking fees anymore. This one looked like it had been surviving on scraps for weeks. She pulled a protein bar from her toolkit and broke off a small piece. The dragon's head snapped up immediately, tiny nostrils flaring as it caught the scent. For a moment, their eyes met. The creature's gaze held an intelligence that surprised her, a depth that seemed almost human. "Here you go, little guy," Zara whispered, tossing the food gently. The dragon pounced on it with surprising grace, tiny claws clicking against the metal deck as it devoured the morsel. From across the bay, rough laughter erupted. 3 Valdorian pirates had noticed the interaction. The reptilian aliens stood nearly 8 feet tall, their scarred hide and military-grade weapons marking them as dangerous. Their leader, a particularly ugly specimen named Krex, pointed at the dragon with one clawed finger. "Look at the tiny freak," Krex sneered in heavily accented standard. "What kind of pathetic creature is that? Looks like someone bleached a normal dragon until all the strength leaked out." His companions joined in the mockery. The smallest Valdorian, Jex, picked up an empty bottle from a nearby vendor stall. "Probably can't even breathe fire. What's the point of a dragon that can't fight?" The third pirate, Nox, grabbed a container of Altarian whiskey from a merchant's cart. The trader started to protest, but one look at the pirate's weapons changed his mind quickly. "Let's see if it can drink like a real dragon," Nox declared, advancing on the small creature. Zara felt her jaw clench. She'd seen enough bullying in her time with the colonial marines to recognize it immediately. The dragon seemed to sense the approaching danger too, backing against a cargo container with nowhere to run. "Hey!" Zara called out, stepping forward. "Leave it alone." Krex turned his massive head toward her, yellow eyes gleaming with amusement. "The human wants to play hero. This doesn't concern you, maintenance monkey. Go back to your pipes." But Zara was already moving. Her father's training kicked in automatically as she assessed the situation. 3 armed hostiles, minimal cover, civilian bystanders in the crossfire zone. Not ideal odds, but she'd faced worse. The dragon let out a tiny chirp of distress as Jex grabbed it roughly by the scruff of its neck. The creature's wings beat frantically, but it was too weak to break free. "Hold still, you little mutant," the pirate snarled. Nox raised the bottle of whiskey above the struggling dragon. "Time for your first drink, tiny freak. Maybe this will put some fire in your belly." The alcohol splashed down over the dragon's head and wings. The creature cried out in pain as the harsh liquor burned its sensitive skin and eyes. Its white scales seemed to dim as the liquid soaked through its delicate wing membranes. Other aliens in the cargo bay began to gather, forming a loose circle around the scene. Some laughed along with the pirates. Others looked uncomfortable but made no move to intervene. The unwritten rule of Nexus Station was simple: mind your own business and stay alive. But Zara had never been good at following rules. She moved with the fluid precision her father had drilled into her during countless training sessions. Her cybernetic arm whirred as she grabbed a plasma wrench from her toolkit. The tool wasn't designed as a weapon, but in her hands, anything could be deadly. "I said leave it alone," she repeated, her voice carrying the cold authority she'd learned in the service. Krex turned fully toward her now, his hand moving to the pulse rifle at his side. "You're making a mistake, human. This is Valdorian business now. We found this creature, so we can do whatever we want with it." The dragon hung limply in Jex's grip, its tiny chest rising and falling rapidly. The whiskey continued to drip from its soaked scales, forming small puddles on the deck. One wing hung at an odd angle where the pirate had grabbed it too roughly. Zara felt something cold settle in her chest. It was the same feeling she'd had on Kepler 442 when she'd seen her squad mates trapped in that burning building. The same feeling when she'd rushed in to save them, even though command had ordered a retreat. The same feeling that had cost her an arm but saved 6 lives. "Let me tell you about Valdorian business," she said quietly, taking another step closer. "I've been to Valdor Prime. I've seen what you call honor. I watched your people execute prisoners who surrendered. I watched you burn civilian shelters just because you could." Krex's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Careful, human. You're walking into deep water." "No," Zara replied, raising the plasma wrench. "You are." The dragon made a weak sound, barely audible over the station's background hum. Its large eyes found hers across the distance, and she saw something that made her breath catch. Recognition. The creature knew she was trying to help. Around them, the crowd began to back away. The smart ones recognized the signs of impending violence. The stupid ones pulled out recording devices to capture whatever happened next. Jex laughed and shook the dragon roughly. "Look how scared the little thing is. Maybe we should—" He never finished the sentence. Zara's plasma wrench caught him square in the throat, the tool's energy discharge sending him sprawling. The dragon tumbled from his grasp, landing hard on the metal deck. Nox and Krex drew their weapons simultaneously, but Zara was already moving. Years of combat experience had taught her that in a fight, momentum was everything. Stand still and you die. Keep moving and maybe you live long enough to win. She dove behind a cargo container as pulse rifle fire lit up the air where she'd been standing. The dragon scrambled on unsteady legs, trying to find cover. One wing dragged uselessly behind it, clearly damaged from the fall. Big mistake. "Human!" Krex roared. "We're going to take our time with you now." Zara checked her toolkit. Plasma cutter, fusion welder, emergency beacon. None of it particularly useful against military-grade weapons, but her father had taught her that the best weapon was the one your enemy didn't expect. She activated the emergency beacon, setting it to broadcast on all frequencies. Station security would respond eventually, but probably not before the pirates finished her off. At least there would be evidence of what happened. A weak chirping sound came from near her feet. The dragon had crawled over to her position, its white scales now stained with whiskey and blood. It looked up at her with those impossibly intelligent eyes and made a soft sound that almost sounded like gratitude. "You're welcome, little guy," she whispered, reaching out to gently stroke its head. "Sorry, I can't do more." The dragon nuzzled against her fingers, its scales surprisingly warm despite their pallor. For just a moment, Zara felt an odd sensation, like a gentle electric current running through her cybernetic arm. The dragon's eyes seemed to glow slightly, and she could have sworn she heard something that wasn't quite a voice whisper. "Thank you." Then the shooting started again, and all thoughts of mysterious whispers vanished as Zara fought for her life in the cargo bay of Nexus Station. An unexpected alliance. Pulse rifle fire scorched the air above Zara's head as she pressed herself flat against the cargo container. The metal was warm against her cheek, heated by the near misses. She could hear Krex and Nox coordinating their attack, their heavy footsteps echoing through the bay as they moved to flank her position. The dragon had tucked itself against her side, its tiny body trembling. Despite its injured wing, it seemed alert, its head turning to track the pirate's movements. There was something almost tactical about the way it positioned itself, as if it understood military strategy. "Come out, human!" Krex shouted. "Make this easy on yourself. We just want to have some fun with the freak, then we'll make your death quick." Zara's cybernetic arm analyzed the acoustic patterns of his voice, calculating his position. The neural interface her father had insisted on during her prosthetic surgery was paying off now. Advanced combat algorithms ran in the background of her thoughts, highlighting tactical options and threat assessments. She had perhaps 30 seconds before they completed their flanking maneuver. The emergency beacon was still transmitting, but station security was notoriously slow to respond to incidents in the cargo bay. Too many false alarms from drunken traders and territorial disputes. The dragon made a soft sound, almost like a question. When Zara looked down, it was staring intently at her plasma cutter. Its large eyes seemed to be trying to communicate something urgent. "What is it, little guy?" she whispered. The creature touched the tool with one tiny claw, then looked back at her. The gesture was so deliberate, so purposeful, that Zara felt a chill run down her spine. This wasn't just an animal. There was intelligence here. Real intelligence. She picked up the plasma cutter and examined it. Standard industrial tool, designed for cutting through hull plating and structural supports. In her hands, It could slice through the cargo containers like paper, but she'd need to get close to use it effectively. And the pirates had superior firepower. The dragon chirped again, more urgently this time. It struggled to its feet and limped toward a maintenance hatch set into the deck. The access panel was marked with hazard warnings in 12 different languages. Zara understood immediately. The hatch led to the station's power distribution network. If she could access the main conduits, she could cut power to this section of the cargo bay. In the darkness, her cybernetic arm's thermal imaging would give her a significant advantage. "Smart little dragon," she murmured, crawling toward the hatch. The sound of approaching footsteps grew closer. Krex was maybe 10 meters away now, using the cargo containers for cover as he advanced. Nox was coming from the opposite direction, their crossfire pattern designed to eliminate any escape routes. Zara's fingers flew over the access panel's controls. Her engineering training made quick work of the security locks, and the hatch hissed open to reveal a maze of conduits and power cables. The dragon immediately crawled inside, moving with surprising agility despite its injuries. More pulse rifle fire erupted as the pirates spotted movement near the hatch. The energy beams carved smoking furrows in the deck plating, but Zara was already dropping through the opening. The maintenance tunnel was cramped and dark, lit only by the soft glow of power indicators. The dragon had positioned itself near a massive power coupling, its scales reflecting the light in a way that made them seem almost luminescent. "You really are something special, aren't you?" Zara said softly. The plasma cutter made quick work of the primary power feeds. Sparks cascaded through the tunnel as the lights in the cargo bay above went dark. Emergency lighting kicked in a moment later, but the illumination was dim and sporadic. Zara heard cursing from above as the pirates suddenly found themselves fighting in near darkness. Her cybernetic arm's thermal sensors painted the world in shades of heat and cold, turning the environment into a tactical advantage. She climbed back through the hatch with the dragon tucked carefully in her jacket. The creature's warmth was oddly comforting, and she could feel its tiny heart beating rapidly against her chest. In the dim emergency lighting, the cargo bay had transformed into a maze of shadows and blind spots. Zara moved with practiced stealth, her military training guiding her steps. The other aliens in the bay had fled when the shooting started, leaving only scattered cargo containers and the 3 Valdorian pirates. Krex was closest, his bulk silhouetted against a flickering emergency beacon. His pulse rifle swept back and forth as he searched for targets, but his reptilian eyes weren't adapted for low-light conditions. Zara approached from behind, the plasma cutter humming softly in her hand. The dragon poked its head out of her jacket, watching with those intelligent eyes. For a moment, she could have sworn she saw approval in its expression. The plasma beam took Krex's weapon apart in a shower of sparks. The pirate spun around with a roar of rage, but Zara was already moving. Her cybernetic arm struck with mechanical precision, sending him crashing into a cargo container. "Krex!" Nox's voice echoed through the bay. "Where are you?" The dragon chirped softly, and Zara felt that strange electric sensation again. This time, it was stronger, more distinct. Images flashed through her mind that weren't her own memories. Tactical assessments, strategic positions, even what felt like emotional support. The creature was somehow sharing its thoughts with her. "Impossible," she breathed, but there was no time to process the implications. Nox appeared around a cargo container, his weapon already firing. Zara rolled behind cover, but not before the dragon let out a sound unlike anything she'd heard before. It wasn't quite a roar, despite the creature's tiny size. It was something deeper, more primal. The sound seemed to resonate through the cargo bay's metal structure, creating harmonics that made the emergency lights flicker. Nox stumbled, pressing his hands to his ears as the frequency affected his sensitive hearing. Zara took advantage of the distraction, using her plasma cutter to slice through the support struts of a nearby cargo container. The massive box toppled forward, pinning the disoriented pirate beneath its weight. Silence fell over the cargo bay, broken only by the hum of returning power as backup systems restored the main lighting. Jex was unconscious where Zara had struck him. Krex was groaning weakly against the container, and Nox was trapped but alive. The dragon climbed out of Zara's jacket and stood on her shoulder. Its injured wing held at an awkward angle, but its bearing somehow regal despite its small size. In the restored lighting, its white scales seemed to shimmer with an inner radiance. "What are you?" Zara asked quietly. The dragon looked at her with those impossibly deep eyes and made a soft sound that might have been laughter. Then it nuzzled against her cheek. its scales warm and smooth against her skin. Station security finally arrived, their heavy boots clanging against the deck plating as they secured the scene. The team leader, a grizzled Terran veteran named Marcus Webb, took one look at the unconscious pirates and raised an eyebrow. "Zara Chen," he said with obvious admiration. "Should have known. What happened here?" "3 pirates decided to torture an injured animal," Zara replied simply. "I disagreed with their choice." Webb glanced at the dragon perched on her shoulder. "That's no ordinary creature. Where did you find it?" "It found me," Zara said. Which was true enough. As the security team processed the scene, Zara noticed something odd. Several aliens who had witnessed the fight were staring at the dragon with expressions of shock and recognition. A Centaurian diplomat looked particularly pale, his normally blue skin taking on a grayish tint. One elderly Vethian approached carefully, his movements slow and respectful. "Honored engineer," he said formally. "May I ask where you encountered this creature?" "In the cargo bay," Zara replied. "Why?" The Vethian's eyes were wide with something that looked like awe. "Young human, you have bonded with a luminary dragon. They are among the rarest creatures in the galaxy. Most believe them to be extinct." The dragon on her shoulder chirped softly, as if confirming the Vethian's words. "Luminary dragons choose their companions carefully," the alien continued. "They bond only with those who possess great courage and stronger hearts. To harm one is considered the gravest sin among civilized species." Zara felt the dragon's warmth against her neck and realized that her life had just taken a very unexpected turn. Whatever a luminary dragon was, she was apparently responsible for one now. And somehow, she didn't mind the idea at all. Number the dragon's truth. 3 days after the incident in the cargo bay, Zara sat in her quarters with the small dragon perched on her workbench. She had fashioned a tiny splint for its injured wing using components from her engineering kit, and the creature seemed much more comfortable now. The dragon had recovered quickly from its ordeal, though it remained small and delicate-looking. What hadn't changed were those impossibly intelligent eyes and the strange mental connection Zara occasionally felt when it touched her cybernetic arm. Her door chimed, and Marcus Webb entered with a concerned expression. "We need to talk, Zara. There's been some interesting developments since the other day." The dragon turned its attention to Webb, studying him with the same intense focus it gave everything else. After a moment, it made a soft, chirping sound that somehow conveyed approval. "First," Webb said, settling into a chair, "those Valdorian pirates have been claiming sanctuary under the Terran Colonial Code. Apparently they're saying they were attacked while conducting legal salvage operations." Zara snorted. "Legal salvage of a living creature? That's not going to hold up." "It might, actually. They're claiming the dragon is an abandoned exotic pet with no legal owner. Without proof of ownership or protected status, station law gets murky." Webb paused, studying the dragon carefully. "But that's not the interesting part. We've had 17 different alien delegates request private meetings with you in the past 3 days." The dragon's head snapped up, its tiny body going rigid with what looked like alarm. "Requests?" Zara asked. "More like demands, really. The Centaurian Trade Council wants to discuss purchase options. The Vethian Science Collective is offering research partnerships, and 3 different military organizations have suggested protective custody arrangements." Webb leaned forward. "Zara, what exactly did you find?" Before she could answer, the dragon launched itself from the workbench and landed on her cybernetic arm. The moment it made contact, Zara's vision exploded with images and sensations that weren't her own. She saw vast starships crossing impossible distances between galaxies, entire civilizations rising and falling in the span of heartbeats, ancient beings of pure energy dancing between stars like children playing in a garden, and she saw herself, through the dragon's eyes, in the cargo bay 3 days ago. But the perspective was different, older. The dragon hadn't seen her as just another human. It had recognized something in her actions, some quality that resonated with memories spanning millennia. The visions ended as suddenly as they had begun, leaving Zara gasping and disoriented. Webb was on his feet, hand moving toward his sidearm. "What just happened?" he demanded. The dragon looked up at Zara with an expression that might have been apologetic. Then it did something that made both humans freeze in shock. It spoke, not in the chirps and trills it had been using, but in clear, perfectly articulated standard. The voice was young, but carried undertones of vast age and wisdom. "I apologize for the intrusion," the dragon said. but circumstances require that I share certain information with my chosen companion. Webb's hand completed its journey to his weapon, though he didn't draw it. Holy stars. What are you? The dragon turned its attention to the security chief. I am what your species would call a luminary dragon, though that term is woefully inadequate. My true name cannot be pronounced by most vocal cords. You may call me Shimmer. Zara found her voice first. You've been able to talk this whole time? Yes, though I chose not to until now. I needed to observe, to understand the true nature of those around me. Shimmer's gaze returned to Zara. You passed every test, Zara Chen, even when faced with superior odds and no hope of victory. You chose to protect someone smaller and weaker than yourself. Webb slowly lowered his hand from his weapon. The Vethian said luminary dragons were extinct. Shimmer's tiny chest seemed to swell with something that might have been pride. We are not extinct, merely selective about when we reveal ourselves. My people have been observing your species for some time, particularly since humans began expanding into the wider galaxy. Observing us for what? Zara asked. To determine if you were worthy of joining the Galactic Preserve. Shimmer's voice carried weight that seemed impossible from such a small creature. You see, there are predator species in this galaxy, civilizations that exist only to consume and destroy. The Preserve is an alliance of the oldest and most powerful races, dedicated to protecting younger species from these threats. Webb sank back into his chair. And you're what? Some kind of advanced scout? I am a guardian's daughter, Shimmer replied simply. My parent serves as one of the Preserve's primary protectors. I was sent to evaluate human behavior under stress, to see if your species possesses the moral flexibility necessary for membership in the Preserve. Zara felt pieces clicking together in her mind. The Valdorians. They weren't random pirates, were they? Shimmer's expression grew grim. The Valdorian Empire has been marked for judgment by the Preserve. Their expansion has been increasingly aggressive. Their treatment of conquered species grows worse with each passing year. If humanity had chosen to join them instead of protecting me. She didn't finish the sentence, but the implication was clear. So this was all a test, Zara said. Not a test, Shimmer corrected gently. An opportunity. The Preserve does not judge species by their potential for good or evil. We judge them by the choices they make when they believe no one is watching. Webb rubbed his temples. This is way above my security clearance. What happens now? Shimmer spread her tiny wings, the injured one moving much more freely than it had 3 days ago. Now, I make my report to the Preserve Council, and if they agree with my assessment, humanity will be offered protection and alliance with civilizations that predate your solar system by millions of years. And if they don't agree? Zara asked. Shimmer's eyes grew sad. Then humanity will face the coming darkness alone, as so many species have before. The dragon hopped down from Zara's arm and began to pace across the workbench. Despite her small size, there was something regal about her movements, a bearing that spoke of ancient authority. However, Shimmer continued, I believe my recommendation will be accepted. What I witnessed in that cargo bay was not just courage, but the kind of selfless protection that forms the foundation of all truly great civilizations. Webb leaned forward. What do you need from us? Time. Mostly. The Preserve moves slowly when making decisions of this magnitude. It may be months before you receive an official response. Shimmer turned to Zara. In the meantime, I would like to remain with my chosen companion. If she'll have me. Zara reached out and gently stroked Shimmer's scales. The dragon leaned into the touch, tiny eyes closing contentedly. I'd like that, Zara said. But I have to ask, why me? There are billions of humans in the galaxy. Why did you choose to reveal yourself to a maintenance engineer on a border station? Shimmer opened her eyes and looked up at Zara with unmistakable affection. Because, Zara Chen, you are your father's daughter, and your father's reputation precedes him, even in the halls of the Preserve. Zara felt her breath catch. My father? How do you know about my father? Colonel James Chen, hero of the Kepler 442 evacuation, the human who sacrificed his own career to save civilian populations that other military leaders had written off as acceptable losses. Shimmer's voice carried deep respect. His actions are studied in Preserve academies as examples of the moral courage required for true leadership. Webb whistled softly. Your father's James Chen, the unbreakable colonel? Zara nodded, feeling a familiar mix of pride and pain. Her father had always been larger than life, a figure whose reputation sometimes overshadowed everything else about him. The Preserve has been watching your family for 2 generations, Shimmer continued. When you chose to rush into that burning building to save your squadmates, despite direct orders to retreat, you proved that courage runs in your bloodline. That cost me an arm and my military career, Zara said quietly. And saved 6 lives, Shimmer replied firmly. In the eyes of the Preserve, there is no higher calling than the protection of those who cannot protect themselves. The room fell silent as the implications of Shimmer's words sank in. Humanity was being evaluated for membership in an alliance that could reshape their place in the galaxy, and somehow, Zara had become the focal point of that evaluation. No pressure, Webb muttered. Shimmer made a sound that might have been laughter. The decision has already been made, Marcus Webb. Zara Chen has proven that humanity possesses the moral foundation necessary for Preserve membership. Now we simply wait for the formal proceedings to conclude. She turned back to Zara with those ancient, intelligent eyes. In the meantime, I believe you have some engineering work that requires attention. The plasma conduits in Section 7 are showing stress fractures. Zara stared at her in amazement. How do you know that? I told you. We've been observing. Your maintenance reports are quite thorough. Shimmer's tone turned playful. Besides, someone needs to keep this station running while we wait for the galaxy to change forever. As Webb left to file his report, Zara gathered her tools and prepared to head back to work. Shimmer perched on her shoulder, tiny claws gripping the fabric of her uniform. Shimmer? Zara said as they walked through the station corridors. Thank you. For choosing me. For trusting me. I know this wasn't easy. The dragon nuzzled against her cheek, scales warm and comforting. Thank you, Zara Chen, for being worthy of that trust. Your father would be proud. As they made their way through Nexus Station, Zara couldn't help but smile. 3 days ago, she had been a simple maintenance engineer trying to help an injured animal. Now she was apparently humanity's ambassador to an ancient galactic alliance, and somehow, with Shimmer's warm weight on her shoulder and the future stretching out before them like an uncharted star map, that felt exactly right.